Church of Bitcoin is yes! saying their prayer.
Yes!
I'm saying other prayers in my heart. So, so who here knows what an ICO is? Raise a hand. Actually, probably the better question. Who here does not know what an ICO is? Good. Then I have something to say. Because if you did know, if everybody knew what an ICO was, I would skip the next 2 slides and we'd be good to go. So I'm the CTO of a company called Mingo. I'm also the CEO of a company called Launchbadge, and recently I just got brought on as the lead developer advocate for a company called Hashgraph. So I am officially like eyeball deep in this crypto distributed ledger space, and I'm committed for the next 10 years to make it super awesome. So I'm here to stay. I got lots of stuff I'm learning, and so hopefully you guys can teach me as well. But today I'm going to talk about my experience with Mingo. We did a pre-ICO this last summer. We did not do it in the United States, thanks to the SEC's announcement in July, which is why I didn't advertise to everybody who's here, because we were focusing on Europe and lots of other Asian countries other than China. So I think Canada, China, the US, and Singapore were the 4 countries we asked people not to participate in. Everywhere else we were like, go ahead, give us your money. So let's actually just real quickly talk about what an ICO is. What is an ICO? An ICO is an initial coin offering. So if you're familiar with an IPO, they offer their stocks, right? It's the initial stock offering, if you will, the initial public stock offering. An ICO is similar, except for backwards. With an IPO, you don't IPO unless you have a business model, a customer base, and profits, or at least revenue in Twitter's case. So an ICO, there's been a lot of money raised on a PowerPoint, a website, and a white paper. And then they take the money and build the product after the fact. Hopefully.
Yeah.
That's the idea. In our case, we actually built the product first, at least a prototype product first. We put it out on the app stores and we let people play with it. We got 50,000 users, got a bunch of feedback, came up with a really solid business plan, brought on a bunch of partners, and then did our ICO, because we didn't want to be one of those companies. But that's not to say you can't make a lot of money on those companies. Tron, folks. Tron. Lots of money to be made there. Where it's going to go, who knows? Nobody knows. When I'm looking at an ICO, so when you look at, first of all, when you invested in Tron as an ICO, what was your expectation of the token?
I didn't invest in ICO, I just bought it really early.
Okay. So, but you have the token now, so what are your expectations on the token, now that you own the token?
I know everyone thinks it's vaporware, and it's a lot of hype, but I think what Justin Sun's trying to do is going to be pretty cool if he actually does it.
So, your investment in Tron, the purpose of that was you were supporting a cool project you have faith in.
I thought it was really cool.
So it's not necessarily because you wanted a utility or you wanted ownership rights or anything. It was because you had faith and you wanted to invest. A lot like a Kickstarter, right? Mm-hmm. A lot like an Indiegogo. When you look at ICO, there's a few things to consider. It's either a crowd sale, a token, or a security. A crowd sale is exactly that. It's an Indiegogo or a Kickstarter. There's a project you have faith in, and you're donating your money to it. Some ICOs actually say that in their terms of the ICO. They'll say, this is a crowd sale. There's no expectation of a return. There's no expectation of any rights or privileges or anything like that. And they'll say that in their terms. Most people don't read them. But most of them will actually say that, and it's really a fundraising effort. And there are a lot of these projects out there, but you've got to be really, really careful about those projects because there's a whole lot of scams out there too. So when you look at a project, you always have to ask yourself, am I investing in something that, or should I say, am I donating to something I believe in, or am I investing in something? Now that's not to say that there's not a lot of money to be made in scams, because there's a lot of money to be made in scams. Even as an ICO investor, if you invest in the ICO and you get a 20% discount and day one it hits the exchange and you sell at full face value, you just made 20% just like that. There's a lot of people that do that. And that's, more power to them. That's not my cup of tea, but there's a lot of people who do that. But keep in mind that a lot of ICOs are just fundraisers. There's no expectation of anything in return. Then there's this idea of tokens. And a token means that there's a utility behind it. So probably one of the best examples, and I don't know who in here is who from the Discord channel, but somebody's really hot on power. The solar ICO out of Australia.
Yes.
So, but if you look at that, quite literally, there's a utility behind the token. So when you generate excess solar power from your solar array, it can be sold back to the grid, and you receive a token in exchange called power. And that token you can use to either buy power in the future, or even if you want to go to exchanges and trade it and just get money off of it. The idea is that like this power is my power. This solar power is my power. I have too much of it, so I want to get compensated for what I give to other people. So it really becomes a token. It's an exchange of some type of utility. And that utility in that case is electricity from your solar array. There are lots of other tokens. Ethereum is a good example of a utility token. You're paying for compute power for the Ethereum VM. So somebody, or a lot of people, a lot of somebodies have compute power that's available. Now they've spent a lot of money to buy those graphics cards and ASICs, but they've got all this excess power that they've artificially built out for you to buy by paying your gas. And if you're familiar with Ethereum, the gas is what they call the cost to compute. So when you want to run a transaction, when you want to send somebody money, or you want to run a programmatic contract, smart contract on the Ethereum platform, you have to pay for that cost. And the more complicated that process is, the more compute power you have to buy, and the more expensive your functions get to operate in that system. So you're paying for a utility. There's a direct relationship between the cost of the utility and the value of the token. Now that doesn't mean there's a direct relationship between, let's just say, the cost of generating one Bitcoin is about $5,000 right now. The value of Bitcoin is much more than 5,000. At one point it was 19,000. So you can kind of understand that there's a speculative spread in there as well. But the idea is that there is a utility in there. There is a utility. With Bitcoin, the utility is the ledger. It's that consensus amongst this distributed ledger. The idea that I want somebody else to document my transaction, and I want it to be immutable, meaning it can't change, and I want everybody to agree on it, and that's the end of it. And you're paying for that. Now that utility costs, because they're doing the proof of work concept, is about $5,000 per Bitcoin. Everything above that's speculation. More power to you if you're trading on Bitcoin. Bitcoin's not going anywhere anytime soon either. So that's what we talk about when we say there's a utility or a token. And that's the idea with tokens. On Ethereum, you have smart contracts which generate these virtual tokens, if you will, that sit on top of the Ethereum contract, which people are using for all types of things, like loyalty programs. People are using them for credit management and credit score management and stuff like that. There's all these utilities you can pay for, and those tokens make sense to me. When you see an ICO that is selling a token, the first question I ask myself is, what's the utility of this token? Where's the real world value I'm going to get just by holding this token? The next type of token you can get is what the SEC likes to call a security. And this is where we get into investments. This is where you have ownership rights. This is either voting rights. This is profit distribution rights. You can earn money if the company is profitable, right? So you can get dividends off of these tokens. And so those ownership rights would classify it as a security. And that's what the SEC wants to be really clear about. So when we're talking about an ICO, the question is it a crowd sale where I'm just trying to raise some money and there's no expectation of return? There might be on speculation, but there really shouldn't be an expectation of return, and I just support this project. Go for it. There's a lot of emotion if you put the word cannabis in your ICO. And there's a lot of money that goes towards those projects, whether there's a token or a security or not, because there's emotion behind it, and they support the cause. Token. Is it a token? Is there a utility that I can get out of owning this token? Or is this a security? Do I have ownership, voting rights, dividend rights? Do I get anything out of this as a holder of this token? So these are the questions you should be asking yourself when you look at an ICO. If you can't figure out where this fits in there, no matter how fancy their website is, or how cool their video is, or how convincing and technical their white paper sounds, if you can't figure out which one you have an appetite for and which one that fits into, stay away from that ICO, okay? In our case, if we look at ours, we did a pre-ICO, and we raised 4,200 Ether in our pre-ICO back in October, which now is worth about $4.2 million. Now, obviously, we raised in Europe and everywhere else in the world, not in the US. Had we done it in the US, we probably would have easily doubled that. And this was our pre-ICO. The whole point of this was for us to build the rest of our project out to our ICO. Okay? And we're coming up on our ICO in March. And we're still trying to figure out if we're going to raise in the US, so we have to work with the SEC on that one. We'd like to, and we're working toward it, but time's starting to run out, and apparently it takes time to work with the SEC, so even though we've been working on it for 3 months, apparently it takes more than that. So, but that being said, when we get to our ICO, our target is, our soft cap is 5 million. We've already raised 4.2, but our soft cap is 5 million. Our hard cap is 25 million. And we've already got a commitment for 7 million from investors that had participated in the pre-ICO. And they're already on a SAF, which means that they've already committed the money to us, and we've got a contract in place that's going to give them tokens. So we already know we blew past our soft cap. Now we're working towards our hard cap. But what is Mingo? So I kind of explained to you what an ICO was, what you're looking for. Yeah, go ahead.
What's the hard cap? What's the soft cap?
So a soft cap generally, and we normally don't do soft caps, but in a soft cap, the idea is that if we don't reach this target, everybody gets their money back. Is usually how it works. Some people do a soft cap, which means this is our first goal, but if we don't reach it, we'll make it work. We'll keep working on it. But really, if somebody says soft cap, in your head you should be thinking, okay, cool, if you guys aren't confident enough to reach that soft cap, then I'm getting my money back, and you guys aren't confident enough to do your project. We've got a 3-year vision on Mingo, and we know that we can execute at a certain level for 5 million. We also know that there's a whole lot more that we can do with our project, and that can be done with more money, more time, and it also helps us with building relationships and teams and acquisitions and stuff like that. 25 million actually isn't a lot of money in this space. We had to hold ourselves back because we had ICO advisors saying, you guys could easily do $1 million with your or 100 million with your project. And we're like, yeah, that sounds nice, but now 100 million is kind of a red flag to ICO investors. If somebody says 100 million, most people are like, okay, really, what's your project? Even though Telegram just came out and said they're going to do, what, 1.2 billion or something like that? It's crazy.
They're telling you.
Yeah, it's still baloney.
What's the hesitation that you're feeling on that? As the window, why is that for expanded growth? Why are you saying, why is that a red flag?
Because a lot of people have asked for a lot of money. Like Bancor, for example, did what, 154 million in their ICO? They had, any technical person that read their white paper went, there's just a bunch of fluff in here. There's no content here. Like there's no ability to execute. Their team wasn't even strong enough. Granted, they had PayPal investments behind them. Or actually, it was PayPal Ventures, I think is what it was called.
Was the business model hollow from what they were going to develop?
No, the business model was pretty sound. The technology wasn't strong. And so
They were reaching further than what was available at the time.
well, and they raised a bunch of money on hype, and everybody, all the technical people were just jaded because we're just like, there's nothing there. And they didn't execute on what they said they were going to do.
Okay.
But after a few months, because they had raised so much money, they shifted a little bit, bought up a bunch of stuff, and now they're like, okay, now we're executing on this other vision that wasn't what we originally said we were going to execute, but it's just as good.
Kim, let's talk less about Bancor and more about Mingo Coin. That's all.
Yeah, but I think the point is like, why is 100 million a red flag? There's a number of those projects that hit that number that didn't deliver, and even now there's a bunch of projects that hit 50 million that there's a lot of doubt about them actually being able to deliver. And to give you an idea, in October there were 2,000 new ICOs running. In August there were 200 new ICOs. So there's a lot of people just grabbing for money right now. So there's a lot of noise out there, and looking for the good projects like Mingo is the target.
That was well done.
So the question is, what is Mingo? So yeah, it's a messenger, but it's not just a messenger. It's a messenger aggregator. So you can see there that my contacts have multiple social icons next to their names. And the idea is that I connect my Facebook, I connect my Twitter, I connect my Slack, I connect whatever, all the messengers I have, and then I can link all the contacts in a way that I only have one person for Brandon, and I'm connected to him on Slack, Facebook, and Steam. So when he sends me a message over any one of those channels, I see it in one place. It's just one message feed between us,
Condensing.
right? So this is the thing about us. A lot of people said, well, what's so special about Mingo? We've got Kik and Kin. We've got Telegram and their ICO. We've got, WeChat's going to do their own crypto. Like every messenger is going to do crypto. What's the difference between you guys? And we're like, great, we love that they're doing it. because we're going to incorporate their messenger into our system and their crypto into our wallet. It's great that they're doing it because we're an aggregator. Let them do their thing and then let everybody kind of consolidate it in our app. And I'm fine with that. So that's what we're doing. But now here comes the utility. Because when you look at this, you're like, okay, well, where's the utility in Mingo Coin, which is what's in the app? And the utility is in casual esports. So our goal is to take the messaging environment, and much like how Facebook is doing it, and Allo, I think Allo is probably the best example of leveraging Google's AI in your messaging. It's the most amazing messenger that nobody knows about. But like Facebook, if you hit the little plus icon next to the messenger, you'll see there's like 50 different things you can do through the messenger, like gaming and sending money and all kinds of shared documents, all kinds of stuff. Messenger is where we live, and there's a lot of organic things we can do through the messenger. And our goal is to build first the strongest case for a value add into the messenger and test that with casual esports. And the reason why I say casual esports is this isn't like CSGO for an hour in tournaments. This is like, I'm gonna play a game of solitaire in 5 minutes, and I'm challenging somebody else to a game of solitaire, and our entry fee is $10, and the winner walks away with 16. The end. 5 minutes, I'm sitting at the bus stop, I just made $6. So that's the kind of casual esports that we're doing. Lots of very quick games, things that people can play on the go, and they can challenge their friends through the messenger, they can find new friends through the gaming platform, all that type of stuff. And crypto is the utility for that. So Mingo Coin is the gaming token in the esports platform. So this allows people internationally to play against each other. Like you could say, why not just do it in USD? Like World Winner or like Skills. It's like, well, that's nice as long as everybody's okay settling in USD. But if you're playing somebody in Japan or playing somebody in Ireland, which is where our headquarters is, or like when I travel to South Korea and I'm playing somebody here in the US, I should be able to buy it in Korean won or in euro when I'm in Ireland, and should be able to still play against each other. And that's where the exchanges come in. So what happens is, first of all, we have a coin, which is Mingo Coin, which is the utility of that gaming platform. It is the token that allows international competition through the esports platform. But second of all, we're going to incorporate with the exchanges automatically. So we're going to create an organic demand for this coin. So those people that participate in the ICO, the early investors, the people that buy, they're going, well, how am I going to get paid on this? How am I going to make money? Well, how do you make money on a cryptocurrency? It's because there's activity on the exchange. Well, how do you generate activity on the exchange? Well, you build an esports platform. And then there's organic activity on the exchange because people have to get their tokens from somewhere. And that's how we drive the exchange activity. So the investors get involved and they go, what's in it for me? Well, we've got an organic way for you to generate income. It's not generated because of speculation. Oh, this is a great project and someday it's going to do something great, so we're just going to keep inflating the value of this token until it bursts. No, we've got a real organic thing going on here. So that's, I got you. I saw you the first time. So that's what Mingo's all about. And actually, that's the last slide. So,
Good.
but this is my experience with the ICO space. This is what I wanted to share with you guys is what's an ICO. Let's take a look at one particular ICO being the one that I helped run earlier in the year. We're running our next one in March, and I don't actually talk a lot about this, and the only reason I'm really talking about it is because Brian asked me to. But because we can't raise in the US, I don't talk too much about it. But that being said, are there any questions?
Why Ireland?
Because
It's Ireland.
well,
It's green.
let me put it this way: the guy who came up with the idea, he and his wife are from Dublin, and we've got the ex-CEO of Baltimore Technologies as our chairman, who's from Dublin, and we've got Niall Horan from One Directions, who's an owner and investor in our company and brand ambassador, and we've got a lot of other stuff in Ireland. In other words, in Ireland, we're like, I'll tell you right now, in Ireland, we're super famous. Like, if you go to Ireland, you listen to the news, you'll hear Mingo all over the place.
Let's go.
Here, nobody knows about it, but in Ireland, everybody knows about it. And so,
Well,
like,
you're gonna
sometimes
be
I forget about that.
You've got
That
to be a prophet in your own land.
cannot be.
So is this done as an org and a company, or just a company ICO? So I mean, there is this process, right, that you do a nonprofit and that recruits the company to do that.
Nope, we're just a for-profit company. There are orgs, and if you're doing a distributed ledger technology, like your own blockchain technology, or your own DAG, the directed acyclical graph technology, then you are going to usually set up an org that benefits from it to hire developers that are part of a for-profit organization. So it is a little bit different when, like, companies can run ICOs to raise funds to build a project, but when you're building a platform that you want everybody in the world to use, there's a little bit of bad will that comes with, like, oh, this is a for-profit organization running Ethereum.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So they'll develop an org that is nonprofit or whatever,
Oh, okay. So
or
that's
consortium or something, yeah.
Who is your competition, if any? I got two questions.
Yeah.
And then the second question is, where or what exchanges are you guys on?
So I can't talk too much about the exchanges,
Okay.
because we literally met with the CEO of one of the biggest exchanges, and he said, "Yeah, we're all on board. Let's do this." But contracts haven't been signed yet, so I can't talk about it. It's not Coinbase, and it's not Kraken. Although I do have the phone number for the guy at Kraken. I have personal friends with a lot of the leads over there as well. So, but they're not looking at tokens either. As far as the competition, there's nobody in the crypto space that is competing with message aggregation and casual esports. There are a few platforms that are doing esports, and there are a lot of platforms doing communications, like Messenger plus crypto. There's a lot of those. There's nobody that's doing message aggregation yet, but I'll tell you what, it's a really hard thing to do. It's a ridiculously hard thing to replicate. So if somebody else does it, like, we're probably gonna buy them. So it's that big of a deal that it's really hard. There might be one of the, outside of the crypto space, there's Skills and World Winner that are competing on the casual esports. And on the Messenger, there's one called DISA. But DISA has 2 connectors, and we've already got 7. And they've been around for 4 years, and we've been around for 1. So kind of give you an idea.
What is the total circulating supply of the token? What will be the total circulating supply?
So post pre-ICO, we were at 55 million. Our target for post ICO is 800 million.
800 million. And what is the total maximum circulating supply?
1 billion.
1 billion?
Yeah. Yeah. So we got to go for smaller numbers because people aren't going to do casual esports.
What will the price be in US dollars in the ICO per token?
I think right now we're shooting for from 4 cents to 6 cents,
Okay.
depending on where you participate in how much and when you participate in the ICO.
Thank you.
Is it an ERC20 token, or on
It
what
is.
platform did you do it?
It's an ERC20 and ERC223 token.
Okay.
So it is on Ethereum. But we can move it to any EVM compatible platform. So there are lots of other blockchains out there. So we're actually even considering that with some, but
So the follow-up question, of the esports, is that handled on-chain? Is that part of the?
it's off chain. Yeah. The
Staking?
settlement is going to be off chain.
Okay.
Not side chains can be off chain.
Okay.
And then I should say, the matchmaking and the settling are going to happen off chain, and then the cashing out is going to happen on chain.
Okay.
So when you want your Mingo coin, you hit withdraw, and it will go to your Ether wallet. In the meantime, it's just going to sit on our platform.
And I'm sure you guys have that in your white paper, I'm sure, like you guys have a white paper.
We're rewriting the white paper for the esports side because
Gotcha.
we didn't have the
Okay.
esports pre-ICO.
Gotcha, so that's
So,
being added to.
Yeah, and just FYI, we're looking at some other technologies, but they're not coming out right yet. That will make settlement instant on-chain with a different technology.
Yeah.
But I can't talk too much about that one either.
Are there any mining or staking incentives with the token, or is it just being used as esports?
So we have talked about using it from a staking perspective for voting, just on features and games and stuff like that. So we are going to incorporate voting on like the next game. So we're going to publish a roadmap of games and let that be prioritized by the community through staking.
Is there any value using the token purely within the messaging side, not the esports, like using as payment
Yeah.
to pay someone?
Absolutely. So yeah, and that's part of, since we're going to be allowing cashing in and cashing out to our token from fiat in the esports side, it doesn't make any sense not to be able to do that in the messenger. So it's just, all it's going to be is we're going to have Mingo coin sitting right next to Bitcoin and Ether. So people who win on our esports platform and accumulate some Mingo coin, like, what do they care about Bitcoin and Ether? They're going to send somebody $10, $20 worth of crypto. Why not just send it in what you've won? Now, the person who gets it might go, yeah, well, that's nice. That's cute that you got this Mingo coin thing, but I really want to get Bitcoin or Ether. And they're welcome to exchange it out however they want in the exchanges. So, but yeah, that's a good question.
is it scalable in a sense where you can aggregate other messengers,
I'm sorry?
other messaging apps? Is it scalable in a sense where you can add
Yeah,
other apps?
yeah. We've got 7 right now, and we've got probably about 4 that are on the clear roadmap, including WhatsApp, Telegram, WeChat, Line, and Kakao.
Okay.
So we've got a few of them. What's that?
Got them covered.
Yeah, so those are the 5 major ones that we're focusing on right now.
Okay.
And then there's a bunch of other ones that are smaller that we're looking at incorporating as well.
Facebook Live.
We hope so. We just had a meeting with their. Actually, it wasn't with them. It was with Mark Zuckerberg's sister, who used to be the VP of marketing. So we just had a meeting with her. So she's going to make some introductions.
Nice.
Do you guys foresee issues with gambling laws or anything like that?
With what?
With gambling laws or anything like that internationally?
We're letting Skills tread that path for us because they're already doing it on a mobile platform in the U.S. As of right now, there are 39 states where there's absolutely no problem because of the way it has to be skills based, which means that when we start the game, you and I are playing against each other, we have to have the same random seed assigned to both of us. So the random seed can be generated in the cloud and then distributed to both of us. And as long as we start with the same random seed, meaning if we made the exact same decisions, we'd have the exact same outcome. As long as that's the case, we're okay. As soon as both of us have different random seeds, or we're both playing against one random seed, like in poker, then all bets are off. But there are 11 states where I know for a fact that you can get in trouble with, and so we have to be careful about that. California is one of them that's okay.
One more question. But you'll be around to take questions
Yes.
later, right?